I'm Rob Sherwood, Head of Digital Campus, as I've just been introduced. Digital Campus is a product team at Imperial College London. We're made up of me and Andrew, and a bunch of other people that Andrew's going to introduce, not me. And yeah.
My name is Andrew Bottomley, Technology Delivery Manager and Product Owner for the My Imperial Campus app. Rob and I work in the Digital Campus team. We're a cross-functional team of designers, developers, and delivery specialists. And we're here to show you what we've been doing on our journey towards the digital campus strategy. We're going to show you a couple of Thank you. Oh, yeah. Oh. Sorry. Oh, God. Yeah, so we're going to show you some of the solutions that we've been implementing and also talk through some of the challenges that we've faced along the way.
So, earlier this year, Imperial College London released a new strategy. It's called Science for Humanity. It explains how the university is going to influence the future for its students, for the community, and for the planet. Underneath all of that, there are a number of strategic change programs. One of those is called Great Environment, and that's principally what we're supporting. Great Environment seeks to explain how we're going to grow our campus, grow our student body, enhance student experience, and at the same time as all of those things, reduce our carbon footprint. So it's a spectacularly grand ambition. When we talk about sustainability under the lens of Great Environment, we're talking about not only environmental sustainability, but financial sustainability and social sustainability. We need to accommodate more students, but we need to create spaces that people can do their best work in and want to work in. We also need to make sure all of that is affordable. So a couple of years ago, we started to do research into a smart campus and what that might mean for Imperial College London. And through that kind of research and the work we did with our community to discover what experiences they wanted to have and wanted to create for their own users, we synthesized a lot of that, and we came out the other end with an idea that we'd refer to it as our digital campus. A bit of a slant, I suppose, on what we probably all know of a smart campus model and the stuff that's come from smart cities. So our kind of broad vision for a digital campus at Imperial College London is one that is connected, sustainable, inclusive, and tries to merge the physical and digital experience of campus. So we took all of that, and this photo up here is one of the outputs of many workshops that we did over the last year or so, and presented it with the support of our CIO to the new Chief Operating Officer at Imperial College London. And what that conversation allowed us to do was to bring together the shared outcomes that we wanted to create, that IT alone couldn't deliver, our property colleagues alone could not deliver, and that allowed us to focus on key investments we needed to make, and also to kind of capitalize and exploit key investments we'd already made, for example, in Zero Trust and in our cloud data architecture.
So, why are we showing you pictures of a smartphone? One of the key messages that came out of the research we were doing was that we had a particularly poor mobile experience on campus. At the last count, we had about 30 apps that staff and students could reasonably be expected to interact with while they're at Imperial. So we commissioned some research from the Dream Team, which is a group of student and alumni from the Dyson School of Design Engineering, to see what they could do to improve this, or what they would suggest to improve this. Some of the things that they highlighted are on the screen. Everybody they spoke to wanted to know what was available, where were things, what was happening on campus, what could they get involved in, and students particularly whether there were any paid opportunities that they could take up while they were there. So, I mean, this all really resonated with, as Rob said, our desire to blend the physical and digital. And we basically created, off the back of it, the My Imperial Campus app. We're confident that this app, which we'll tell you more about, can revolutionize the student experience. We're confident it can become the best HE app in the world. Along the way, why have we built our own app? We did look around, but none of the apps available allowed us to do what we wanted to do what the students wanted to do, which was really provide a very personalized experience. Last year, we were shortlisted for a Reach Award, and we've just found out we've been shortlisted for a Times Higher Innovation of the Year Award, so we're very proud of that.
So, You're probably wondering why now we're looking at some rather dull grey images of the app. These are the features that are currently available. The look and feel is going to be released over the next couple of weeks that look more like the screen we've just seen. The university's been through a major rebrand this year. There's been some controversy around it, but I think it's been a great success. We didn't want to preempt the rework by focusing on the design. So the focus has been on working software. And over the last year or so, we've been iterating development of a bunch of key features, and I'm going to dive into a few of those. So up on the top right there, you can't focus in on it, that's fine. It's our generative AI chatbot that allows users to hold conversation with college resources. That came from a student problem, which was they found it really difficult to locate knowledge or to navigate web information because searching for it wasn't particularly intuitive, and they didn't necessarily know what they were looking for. So the advent of ChatGPT, a bit of a light bulb moment, we just realized we could point these kind of things at a lot of our publicly available resources and allow people to converse with it. Down at the bottom is a glimpse of our events feature. Something students were really frustrated with at Imperial was knowing that great things were happening, but quite often hearing about an event after it happened and not having that mobile-first ability to discover what was going on, and definitely not a personalized way of doing that. So in our feature, we bring our events data from our systems into our data infrastructure. We then create APIs for it. We connect to that via our app. We tag it on the way in with an AI service so that students can start to build up a profile and a persona of their interests, whether they're academic or leisure-based. And the app starts to promote the things that resonate with the keywords that are being tagged. And this was something that students were really, really keen on. They wanted a more personalized experience of their time at Imperial. They also wanted to make more of that time and have a richer experience of it. So in the future, we'll hope to build a full recommendation algorithm, but in the meantime, we'll continue to iterate these apps. I think the two things that are important to point out, we regard these as innovations in our context, but our students regard them as everyday kind of experiences. And standing from within Imperial College London, where we like to talk about how we're leading the world in terms of the innovation and inventions that the university community creates, but sometimes some of our products don't quite reflect that. So that's why we've been trying to focus on that and to kind of accept that challenge that students have given us.
So, I wanted to dive into one of our features a little more, and there's a video that should hopefully play in the center. So we've created a 3D map, which is one of the features that we think could be game-changing if we can get it right. Sorry if it's a bit jerky. When you video a smartphone, it ends up looking a bit like this. We worked with some of our students to take data that's available in our space management systems and create a 3D map off the back of it. So this means that when we alter our floor plans or create new spaces, we automatically update the 3D model that you're looking at here. We work in a university. It's got a very complex set of campuses. I'm sure anyone that works in a university can empathize. It's hard to find your way around. Students at the beginning of term this last week have all stood on the spot wondering which way to turn. Staff who've been there 10 years similarly don't know how to get between two different buildings. So we've started small, but this is going to continue to build. As you can see, you can click on a building, you can expand it, you can then see what's going on in the building. If you zoom in on, say, the toilets, it splits into different kinds of toilets. And it's starting to look, oh, we did it in time. It's starting to look quite good. Like any map you're used to using, Google Maps, we have overlays that will pop up, which give you information, and you can navigate within it using that. Obviously, there's a slight overlap here with the digital twin, which I'm sure we're going to hear more about over the next 2 days. They're often a headline of a smart campus initiative, but they're often more about making property ops more sustainable. The students were more interested in having something that just really catered to what they want, which is really about discoverability of the campus. As you can see, there's not that much data in here yet. One of the main struggles we've had with this, we can get the data from our space management system, and that's all lovely. Data between different systems had different identifiers for spaces. Trying to bring all of that together has been a real challenge. Similarly, having data that was last maintained 10 years ago when somebody ran a project is problematic. If we're going to put this data out there and put it in people's hands, it needs to be timely, it needs to be maintained. But the data we do have that's good, we're bringing into our data platform and transforming it there, and then we're going to make it available here. We're also collecting some new data sets. For instance, our student union president had a word with Rob and said one of her main, the thing she hears most about was that students wanted to know where water fountains and microwaves were on campus. So it will be in our next release, I hope. We're going to put that data available so that students can tell. I mean, it sounds possibly silly, but it's something that really impacts student experience. You don't want a student that's hungry because they couldn't heat up their lunch. Data has been the underpinning challenge on this one. In the future, using our new Wi-Fi technology, we should be able to do more work with the kind of the blue dot location services, find where you are, we'll know what floor you're on, and then we've been doing some work with one of our physics students about wayfinding, which is very exciting, but a way down the line. We're trying to get the basics right first.
Great. So stepping away from the app for a little bit, as a university, we used to have an occupancy analytics platform. It'd been implemented with one group's requirements in mind and maybe not another, so it wasn't useful for everybody who was trying to make plans for campus. When we looked at that product and we thought about the kind of utility we wanted to get out of it, we realized that scaling it was going to be a real challenge. It was going to become quite costly. But worst of all, it wasn't going to remain flexible enough because there are going to be a lot of changes to Imperial as we decant departments around. We've got a lot of 1950s buildings. Anyone that's been there, they're very leaky. So there's going to be a lot of change in our physical environment. But understanding how that environment is used is paramount. So we joined up thinking and working with our networks colleagues, other colleagues in infrastructure, and describing what university needed, bringing that conversation to our registry colleagues and our space planning colleagues. We started to think that we probably ought to take a more DIY approach, so we were more in control of it, and that there were fewer kind of people to go through to create kind of change to get the data we wanted. So it comes back to the investment we've made in our wireless upgrade. We're 60% way through the rollout, and over the summer we've been doing some proof of concepts with the data that we're able to get out of the platform, and it's really exciting. We're working very closely with the registry because they need that data for curriculum decisions, and with our space planning team who obsess over this data to make it presentable and shareable and accessible. The current challenge with it is obviously turning the device count, it's counting all our devices, into a single person, and that's been a great opportunity to bring students into that process and look at the different ways you can use machine learning to arrive at that calculation. Some of them are a bit more invasive than others, and we'll probably have to go for the ones that are a bit less invasive, but quite a lot of fun in the process. The other proof of concept has been around the heat maps. So with the same set of data, we can then create a function to generate a PNG image, and that's going to be what's coming into our 3D map. Students find one of their big frustrations is not being able to book spaces around university, and that's about productivity, making sure they can make the most of their time there. Again, we can't just give them bookable spaces overnight, but what we can do is allow them to know where might be busy, where there might be queues, where might be quiet. And that enables more creativity, more spontaneity in what students can do while they're on campus. So this will be forthcoming. I guess the last point there is the same point as making earlier. This is kind of expected today. So we regard this as maybe futuristic within what we provide as technology and Imperial, but actually this is kind of should be commonplace. So that's why we're prioritizing it.
So we wanted to bring it back to sustainability particularly. As we said, Imperial has a bold ambition to be net zero by 2040. We've, for the past year or so, had a Director of Sustainability, Harriet Wallace, and we've recently just recruited a Head of Sustainability to work between property and ICT, which is going to be really interesting to see. It's a different way of collaborating. We also, at Imperial, have world-leading experts in energy, climate, sustainability, working in the various institutes we have, like the Energy Futures Lab. And some of those academics got together with one member of our team, Chris, and they've been working on how we can make the data we have on our carbon emissions more accessible to the whole college community. We're going to take a look at two of those now.
So when Harriet arrived early last year, I believe, one of the first challenges she came and spoke to us in IT about was the lack of data. Described a world where most of the data was either in a PDF because the supplier had come in once a year and helped do annual statutory reporting, or was on Excel sheets with tons of notes on gaps, irregularities, manual calculations that had to be done to make sense of the whole thing. And we worked with the energy managers and with all the colleagues that Andrew just mentioned across faculty, which was really great getting that input. And we realized we wouldn't be able to create something perfect, but that we shouldn't let that be the enemy of the good. And that by making data more available and shareable, it would be more immediate, and that would enable more strategic planning. There's a massive lack of immediacy in the way that data was being shared before this. So what we're looking at are the reports on Scope 1 and 2 that are in Power BI, and they're updated nightly. That brings together our space planning data, so there's a source of truth for the location, and that's mapped to our metering infrastructure, and the data comes in from the metering infrastructure. And what that allows university to do is to create league tables, and amongst itself, we can filter this data by building, by faculty, and by department. And that creates a sense of transparency and openness, which is super important, and it's a first for the university. Oh, there's one other point. So one of the great things about doing this was bringing together our data engineers from IT to work really closely with energy managers. And by going through all of the work that needs to be done to clean the data, it not only removes some of that rework that data engineer the energy engineer would be doing next year, it allows them to start to focus on the problems. So why are there gaps in the data? And going back with a kind of more focus to the infrastructure to actually start to make replacements to dodgy devices and faulty things. If your estate is anything like ours, it's very mixed heritage. All kinds of things have been applied to get energy into spaces over the years. Some of them are in sealed boxes. It's an absolute fiasco. So that's why it's been a really important experience.
So I'm going to talk to you about the Scope 3 emissions. Obviously, as a research-intensive university, we do use lots of, power, but that's only 20% of our total emissions. So understanding where the other 80% comes from is very important. So when we tried to look at getting this data out and making it more intelligible to the average user, the first challenge was that it was in a 20-year-old ERP system, so how do we get at that? After that, how do we present the data to colleagues in a way that makes sense to them, that makes sense to their departmental structure, so they can understand what impact they're having? So we worked with a PhD student who was working with one of the academics, and she's been doing some research on how you can map groupings between the different categorizations. So there's DEFRA categorizations, HE typical categorizations, and our own internal. So she did some modeling. I will not pretend to understand what or know what she did, but she basically does some data work, which then means we can present the data that we do have to our departments in a way that they can then self-serve and look at what they've got. So this underpins our new sustainable purchasing policy. And what we're hoping, what was suggested to me was that category purchasing managers can sit down with a supplier and say, we can tell what the carbon emissions are, we're potentially a very good customer, and try and influence their behavior and see how we can change that. Alternatively, they could be looking around at what other departments are doing and see a supplier that's supplying a similar service, but with better looking numbers, and so we could potentially try and change and use that in the discussions we have about procurement. As Rob said or alluded to, we're hoping that making this data wholly open across the university will mean that there's an element of people looking at each other's numbers and trying to drive down their emissions, I think is what's hoped. And it also, the whole thing underpins the financial sustainability of the university.
Great. So that has more or less been 20 minutes. I think in wrapping up, what we wanted to come and share a bit of the journey that we've been on in looking at Smart Campus, learning from it, and finding out what's right for Imperial. It's been a bit of a journey. We've described a couple of key investments. There's lots of things we haven't described. There's whole areas that we're looking at that decisions haven't quite been made, whether that's building management systems, integrated workplace management systems. There's a big issue in our university around security access control, for example. They're all ripe with opportunity, and they all require a level of collaboration that we're working towards. But I think what's really exciting about being here is to come and learn about some of those things from all of you. So thanks for bearing with us. We were remarking that whoever decided to put this conference on just after Welcome Week was great timing. But thanks for bearing with us, and really looking forward to the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
Hi, thanks. Just a quick one on the 3D maps near the start there. I had already jumped in my head to that's going to be used for wayfinding, which you said is coming. So what is the current use case for those? The
use case, so obviously we've we worked with one of our students who did a really, we were going to have a slide at one point, but we thought we had too many, a really interesting piece of work where using our space management tool, the data from it, we can pick the center point of every room, identify doors, stairs, lifts, and he produced a kind of a node network that finds the quickest way from A to B, including or excluding certain type, stairs. He was also starting to get a bit carried away and started doing a dry route in case it's raining or whatever. But so we have that kind of the theory there. We have his models, and he's still a student there, so we can still talk to him. But it's a way down the line. And we've also debated how much we want to focus on that or will, but it's certainly something that I think we have ambitions in the direction of.
Was the question around the use case for the 3D map or for wayfinding?
I think I can see how it will be really powerful. I can't quite see what nice, but what was the actual thing you do with it today?
The 3D map.
Yeah.
So it came out of all of the user research we did, so listening to students. Our campuses are quite complicated, they're quite hard to find around. It wasn't purely about location, it was about how you encounter information and how you understand what's happening, resources. Maybe we didn't make it particularly clear. The ambition for the app is to bring these features together. So what we've got coming in through the events feature will actually be integrated into our 3D map, so you can see in real time when events are happening. We will then start to build out open day journeys, digital tours, those kind of things. So it's actually a way to bring together the functions around university. We're quite federated. We have been very federated. So there's lots of stuff going on. And what that means is that there's loads of great people doing loads of great things. We're really, really inefficient. And we're quite behind the curve when it comes to technology in certain areas. And that's because our resources spread very thinly. So while we've shown you some of the innovative things we're doing, we spend probably 2/3 of our time doing operational stuff, maintenance, huge portfolio of space platforms, CRMs, all the things that our campus services use to run. What they really are tremendous opportunities for data, but we have to rationalize it, simplify it, bring it back together. The 3D map allows us to have a kind of North Star when we can start to plan strategies to bring those things together. It forces those conversations around data curation, master data management. Andrew talked about that. It's very, very difficult. You need data owners. So what we've generally done over the last decade is listen to people kind of complain about quality of data, but actually putting the action in to own it and make sure there's practices, processes, policies to make that data have high integrity. That's kind of where we are. So the 3D map's one of the ways that we're doing that, and we feel quite passionate about it. I think like everything, there's an element of risk, we're putting resource towards it. Maybe we find out it's not right. That's where the data on the app adoption comes in and finding out the utility of it. But we're fairly confident that it has utility. We've met with many suppliers who try to do a similar thing, but we haven't found them flexible enough. And so we're kind of doing a bit of a DIY thing here and bringing some of these key investments together. And we feel like that's what we should be doing. We've built all these skills around data engineering, and we've got more and more skilled developers, and then we've got these students who are leading the world in what they can do, particularly in design engineering. So that's kind of why. I don't know if that explains the use case. It's a little bit cosmic. Are there any more questions? There's some more here.
There's one at the back first, I think.
Hi, Bryony, London Business School. I think we met over at ISE. Hello. Nice to see you guys. That was so interesting, and I have loads of questions for you, but cool. I'll limit it to one for now. Fascinating that you chose to build the app in-house, and I just wanted to know, were you working with an internal dev team, or did you work with an external partner? Did you leverage kind of students? How
it's hybrid, all of those. So it involves all of those. It can't be done purely by an external partner because of all the data challenges and just the separation within our quite diverse kind of user group, really, or the community. So we have all these internal skills that we're building up around data engineering in particular. We also then have that landscape of systems and things that we need to build or to maintain, create APIs for all of that stuff. It's very difficult to outsource all of that. So the bit of outsourcing there is bringing skills in that we don't really have. We don't have a mobile development team because that's quite an undertaking. So it's a combination of all those things, and bringing students into it has been really rewarding. And there's a bit of me at the back of my head that goes, well, if this all does go a bit wrong, at least a few students have had a really great time and they've got loads of experience and we paid them some money along the way. But hopefully we'll have that and actually create a successful app.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Jonathan Oakden from Loughborough University. Big fan of the Power BI visualization stuff that you're doing there. I think that's really cool. Are you making those publicly, it's a two-part question really, are you making this publicly viewable to people, or are they available to key staff?
The sustainability ones particularly.
In particular, yeah.
They're not currently available, I think I'm right in saying, to all staff yet. We've released them to a larger group now, I believe, of people who are looking at them and making sure they're all comfortable with them. There's certainly an intention, I understand it, to make them available across Imperial. I don't honestly know whether we're intending to make them externally, are we?
So there's probably, with good reason, hesitancy to use them for, say, statutory reporting at this point. And
I can understand that.
I think we need to ask Harriet about the intentions for public. I don't know of any.
Yeah.
The intention is very much publicly available within the university.
Yeah, that's kind of more what I meant, really.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand that. I couldn't see much reason to make it too public because it's a bit... everybody starts criticising when you start to do that. But I was kind of wondering, is there then a plan or any sort of ideas to look at whether or not the use of these and making this data available starts to drive change, whether you've got some sort of feedback loop coming on this eventually?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is only one part of a much broader sustainability strategy. Because it's been identified there are huge interventions, and we're making some of those now on our STEAM network, for example, that are going to help with reducing carbon footprint. But it is more than just carbon, isn't it? It's culture, behaviour, all of those things. So that's why the act of making this available was important, so that people could start to see that we were just going to share this, obviously within Imperial, but we're just going to share this so that labs can start to look at what they do and high-intensive research and the impact that that has. Maybe they want to compete with each other. So it's kind of sprawling off from your original question, which I've now forgotten.
It was just whether or not you were going to, whether or not you're putting, I appreciate it's early days yet, but whether or not there was going to be some active work to look at whether or not the stuff that you're doing there starts to, evidentially drive change.
Yeah, absolutely. It won't be kind of us doing that kind of feedback loop, but the feedback loop exists. There's a number of sustainability committees. Systems and Data Working Group is one we're most involved in, but there are a number of others, and they are very inclusive of faculty members, lab managers, all kinds of people from around the community, and that's where the feedback's coming from. So we iterate the development on those reports via the core sustainability team, but they go and do the feedback loop with the rest of the university on what they need. And that's where the scope 3 stuff came from. That was quite ambitious. Category managers were saying that they really wanted that data so that it could change their processes and their policies. Anyone else? Or are we done?
I think team up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.